Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this panel session with JP Morgan. My name is Paula Humphrey, and I'm part of the campus recruiting team at JP Morgan. And it's my role to go out and find great talent like you, let you know about the opportunities that you've got with us, inspire you to apply, and hopefully just make you really excited about a potential career at JP Morgan. Today is a bit of a different one from us from maybe what you're expecting from a financial services company, because we're really shining a spotlight on those roles that drive the success of a firm like us. So rather than thinking about what happens at the front office working with clients, these are the roles and the people who are making us successful as a business. Arguably an even more important role to make sure things work. But we just wanted to let you know that there's more to life than just banking, and certainly a business career at JP Morgan can be really, really rewarding. We're going to chat for about half an hour, and then we'll be there to take your questions. So please do pop anything that you want to ask the team in the chat box. And I know that our colleagues from RMP will pop up a bit later and pick out the most frequently asked questions, and we'll be able to take them as well. In the meantime, I want to introduce you to my colleagues, Siti and Kanish. Unfortunately, Emily was also supposed to be joining us, but technology once again has played its part. But there will be people representing Emily's line of business, which I'll tell you a little bit about as we go through in the booth, so you can pop in and have a chat with them throughout the rest of the event. So in the meantime, we're going to hand over to Siti and Kanish. Let's start with you. If you could just tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Siti. I am a HR analyst from the 2019 year, so I joined last year as a graduate. Before that, I also did an internship, also in HR, in summer of 2018. My experience in JP Morgan so far is with HR projects on a technology side, as well as employee relations, which is definitely very interesting.
Thank you. Kanish, over to you.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Keith Sinha. I am currently an analyst on the Global Finance and Business Management program, where we undergo 3 different rotations. I joined the firm in September 2018, so I'm currently just into my 3rd rotation, so time really does fly. My first rotation was in business management in the fixed income financing space. The 2nd rotation was in valuations in the credit space, and I've just recently in October joined my final rotation, being a product controller in the CPG space. Yeah, looking forward to virtually talking to all of you, and hoping you can learn a lot from today.
Brilliant, thank you. You've already picked up on there is a lot of the roles in the programs that we have to manage our business internally are rotational programs, and I think that's quite an exciting thing, and we can touch on that in a minute. But also just wanted to let you know that Emily, who was joining us, is from our CADP program, and that's the Corporate Analyst Development Program. And that is another rotational program that looks at our operations, processes, how we do business throughout the whole of JP Morgan, and look at how do we improve that. So they're an internal team, sort of consulting, if you like, to all of our other teams about how to work even more effectively. Big focus on data analytics, project management, and process improvement. So if those are the areas that you're thinking about, if consulting interests you, CADP is definitely something to pop to the booth and talk about as well. Okay, so let's focus on kind of Siti and Kanish's experiences so far. And I wondered if you could just tell us a bit about why you chose to work in a financial services firm. You're both in roles that could happen anywhere. So what was it about financial services? Siti, should we start with you again?
Yeah, of course. So when I was a psychology graduate trying to figure out what I wanted to do, I knew that no matter what, I wanted to choose a firm that would give me the most opportunity in terms of exposure, understanding different parts of the firm, mobility just within the firm and going abroad. And then I found that financial services, especially JP Morgan, is the best place for me to achieve that. So I've gone and looked at a lot of different companies, but I found that in terms of opportunity and in terms of what I would like to do with my career, JP Morgan was the best choice. And I can say absolutely this is true, even though I've only been in it for about a year plus now.
Stuff. Kanish, you've probably had lots of opportunities to work maybe for like the Big Four or someone like that. So again, why come to a bank?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think 11-year-old me was saying I'm going to work for JP Morgan. I think I was still hellbent on being a football player at that point. Still kind of am. No, so I did economics at UCL, which is typically a usual breeding ground for people to join financial services, regardless. But that wasn't the only reason. I think I've seen a lot of people go to startups. I've seen a lot of people go to the Big Four. I've seen a lot of people come to banks. And I think something that's fantastic about being not only in financial services in a bank, but especially with JP Morgan is sort of the experience that you get. Day one, especially for me in business management, which was my very first rotation, day one, the amount of exposure you have is phenomenal. And you're working with generally the brightest people in the business. JPM is number one for a reason. Might be biased on that one, but we really are. And the amount of stuff I was soaking up, just being a sponge on the trading floor and going around speaking to everyone, I found that joining a firm like JPM to start my career, so much to learn, so much to network. And as City mentioned, there's so many opportunities that you can really leverage for your future career. So it's always a tough one. Financial services, the Big Four, startups, something completely different. I think do whatever you're comfortable with, but if you want to gain a lot of experience and you want to learn a lot in a short period of time, coming to a big firm such as JPM is something that I would definitely recommend.
I've worked in all three of those environments, and yeah, they've all got their own charms and things to recommend them. But I think, like you both said, the breadth of opportunity, being part of a big firm, you also have the training to fall back on, and that sort of thing. So before we sort of try and tackle that question about what a typical day looks like, you've both mentioned about exposure and learning from the best. And I just thought it'd be really interesting to know, who are your clients? So we see on the trading floor in IB, working with external clients, who are the people that you work with sort of on a day-to-day basis? Let's start with you if we can.
Yeah, sure. So I think the people I typically work with, for me, I've been doing rotations in various parts of the business. So rotations are typically split between the markets aligned roles and the banking aligned roles. So me, maybe coincidentally, this is my third consecutive markets type role. So my usual stakeholders are, the traders, the salespeople, but varying even to people in operations and technology. So I think what's unique about the FMBM scheme is, our stakeholders are almost pretty much everyone. I mean, our traders and sales are the main people we speak to, but I've had many projects with technology, many projects with operations, and a whole horde of people. So I think some roles are more aligned to different stakeholders. For example, business management and product control will be very trader aligned versus such as regulatory reporting. But I would say, my main stakeholders really are the front office traders. But again, it really varies. It depends on the project.
And that's brilliant, isn't it? Because you're also seeing what we do every day and sort of very much at the heart of what people expect banking to be. City, I mean, your stakeholders are people, so that's kind of everyone. Who do you work with, mate?
Yeah, so when I was doing the HR project space, we were migrating an old HR system into a new one. So I think it's quite fair to say that our stakeholders was every single person in the firm, because if it didn't work for a trader or a banker or anybody, then it wouldn't work for the firm. And the team that I'm in now, which is employee relations, we look at advisory, support, misconduct of employees. So this is a really interesting one because we work with in the background with teams such as cybersecurity, global security, technology, compliance, audit. So very, very interesting. Definitely touches a lot of teams. And I think one thing about HR is no one really says how important they are until you meet them, because we are the team that supports you at the moments that matter a lot to you. For example, compensation, or advisory and support, or talent and performance management, promotion. So it really is one of those things that works in the background, but it's really, really important.
Especially the compensation bit. We've got annual review time coming up, so it's kind of top of everyone's mind, I think. I said I was going to throw in that horrible question. We always get asked it. What does a typical day look like? I think it's probably fair to say there isn't a typical day. So let's reframe it as what are the kind of things that analysts and associates, maybe even interns, if you can remember what you were doing, get involved with. And City, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I'll try and maybe compare what it was like as an intern and now as a graduate. When I was an intern, I was fresh out of university, kind of like this awkward time when I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so as an intern, I think on day one, I was given quite a lot of responsibility, but I also had a lot of support from my managers and my team. A typical day would look like checking my emails and then trying to understand what sort of projects I have on, and then speaking to people who are relevant on it. But I also had time to network, and this is something that I really value. Even now, I still have time to chat to people online, or when I was in the office, I had time to catch up with them over coffee or just walk into the kitchen, for example. And there's a lot of what I would say parallel to university clubs, which are business resource groups. So I'm involved in NextGen, which is a group for the younger generation in the firm. I'm in a group for Aspire, which is for Asia Pacific employees in the firm. So there's a lot of things that you can get involved in. So I would say on a day-to-day basis, it is genuinely so different. It is truly what you want to do on that day.
Yeah, I saw you nodding away there. I'm guessing kind of similar for you.
Yeah, I think, I keep banging about rotations, but it really does change your experience. My first year in business management, the saying every day is not the same is so true. Every day I was doing something completely different. There was a lot of, I guess, project-orientated work with them. I mean, doing a lot of Brexit management, a lot of forecasting, budgeting, planning, all sorts of stuff that you can imagine when it comes to running a business. But then when you flip that to the current controller role I'm doing in product control, you could argue that most days do kind of maybe look the same. You're supposed to get your P&L out by a certain time, your risk, you've got to work on certain month-end projects, et cetera, et cetera. I think it really does depend on the role. And I think that is also useful because if you are someone that, wants every day to be different or wants every day to be the same, you can really pick and align your roles accordingly if you really want to have the same sort of day. And don't get me wrong, it's never the same sort of day. There'll be problems, things will come up, every day is still kind of different. But if you want something that's a bit more structured, you could go into a particular role. But if you want something a bit more ad hoc, into another role. I think that's, again, something that's really great about GF&BM program and also just working in a broad business like JP Morgan itself. But I also, appreciate City's point about the BRGs and the sort of outside work. And I think that's super important. In the F&BM program, we have a sort of graduate committee that I'm currently the co-chair of alongside someone else. And, we do a lot of sort of initiatives around the firm to support the graduates in the 3 years, be it stuff to do with mental health, training, learning, hosting events, which is even more topical now in this virtual environment. We try to come up with lots of different virtual events like, donut decorating, playing Mafia, sort of, all sorts of things. So I think it's nice to sort of look outside of work as well and see what the firm offers. And honestly, there is a lot. So
that might be kind of the campus recruiting team moving soon. And I definitely want to kind of hold on to that idea of the BRGs, committees and stuff. A couple more questions about your roles, and then let's talk a bit about our culture. So you both are on rotational programs, which gives you a great opportunity to get involved in a variety of different things. What have been your favourite projects or rotations so far? Kanish, can I start with you?
Yeah, of course. So many, honestly. I think let's narrow down a couple. So in my first year in business management, there was this thing called Brexit going on. I'm sure you might have heard of it. And that was an absolute pain. I'm not going to bore you with the logistics, but there was a lot of things that we had to do with our clients. We had to sign particular agreements and all sorts of fancy stuff in the background. And the task I had day one was, here are our clients. We want to be tracking, where they are in the repapering cycle. Go. And there was some raw data somewhere, but this task was, this project was extremely, I guess, difficult, but also beneficial for myself because I ended up calling a bunch of people around the bank who I didn't know. I had to think about, outside of the box skills in terms of ways to maybe map data back together or come up with new sort of coding or sort of ways to organize data, which I found was really good. and really improve my sort of problem solving skills. And it was also nice because I was honestly watching the news like a hawk. We had this is back when I was on the trading floor for business management. We have TVs everywhere. There's a TV right in front of my desk, and I would typically daydream anyway. But at least this time I had an excuse, because this is back in the day when Theresa May was, continuously having votes and things continued to get put back, which actually had a direct impact on my work. So I found it quite cool. The very first few months in that, news from the outside environment and the government was actually directly impacting the work that I was doing, which I found quite interesting. And I think another project to point out was during my valuation control group days in my second rotation. We talked about Brexit, and let's talk about something even more topical right now, COVID. Back in, I think, March, April, when we had to move and work from home. As I'm sure you all know, markets were pretty volatile and spreads all over the place. And as a result, from a valuations perspective, that made things a lot harder when it came to taking reserves. Airlines, as I'm sure you know, were hit quite hard with the COVID environment, with the lack of flights and subsequent impact on cash flow. So, I was working with my executive director on ways that, there's a particular airline here who's suffering. We have particular maybe trades with them. How is that going to impact our reserves? Should we be more conservative? Can we produce a new model in a way to do that? And a lot of technical jargon, which I'm not going to act like I understand, but I found it super interesting because, again, it was something in the media and the news and the business environment and the market that was directly impacting what I was doing in a project that I was working on. So I think that sort of link is something I found really, really interesting.
So kind of see it day to day, and you can, even with me now, you can say to your parents, this is what I do, and they're like, no, I get that because I see it on the news. My parents still think I take students out drinking. How about, if only, how about you? What would have been some of your favourite projects or rotations so far?
Yeah, so I think in my first rotation, where we were migrating all of our data from one HR program to another, the most interesting thing I did was to try and align our processes with the 33 countries that we cover in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And you would think that that'd be quite simple because HR processes should be the same in all the places, but it's actually really different because each country has their own laws, they have their own regulations, they have their own rules. So it's understanding what can we apply to those places, or what does Italy need extra compared to Saudi Arabia, compared to Qatar, or compared to Luxembourg. And I thought that this was really interesting because it gave me a lot of exposure. I was working directly with local HR in those spaces, to the point that when I finished that rotation, and I was telling everyone, thank you, had a really good time. Very senior people from different parts of the world were giving me personal messages of how much they appreciated me, which I will absolutely use in the future if I want to go abroad. So I think this is a really interesting one because it gave me a lot of exposure really early on in my career, and it gave me a really good understanding of how we are a global team, which means that in each location there's specific local regional nuances that we have to take account of. So definitely very interesting, especially now in the age of Brexit.
We kind of could be forgiven for forgetting about Brexit, given everything else that's going on, but yeah, still there, still going. So I wanted to sort of move more to a bit more about our culture, because I think at the moment, what our audience are missing is that chance to kind of get in and experience it. So it's good to spend a bit of time chatting about it. We talked a bit at the beginning about choosing a financial services firm, but it's more than that, and we both kind of alluded to some of this, but what is it about JP Morgan that made you choose us in the first place? And obviously with the internship, you had an opportunity to try before you buy, if you like, and came back. Yeah. So what kind of makes you stay at JP Morgan? I don't know who wants to start. Suti, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So I remember when I was still in uni, my thinking was I chose JP Morgan because this is the best place for my career. So it's purely from a career perspective. And then when I actually joined and experienced the people that I worked with, the environment itself, it was so supported. I felt really comfortable. I feel that it's very diverse. I feel that I can, be truly myself and have no problem at all with that. I got really, really comfortable, really happy to stay. And obviously when I got the graduate role, it was just like, oh, perfect. And I think a really nice thing about it as well is that it doesn't matter who you are. You may be someone from the older generation, you may be like a different race or religion or nationality, whatever. There is a place for you in the firm, and I truly, truly feel that way. So that's definitely one thing that has made me stay on after the internship.
Just to echo those thoughts, I think, I mean, I've only ever, I guess, worked at one other firm aside from JPM, so I do sound extremely biased when I say all these fantastic things about the company, but I mean, the people are phenomenal. They really, really are. The amount of sort of learning and opportunities and networking that you can get is something that at sort of my age of 21, 22, 23 that I never thought I'd be able to have. People are kind of, you know, it's hard to really define culture, right? Because, you know, it's very subjective to everyone. And I'm not going to act like the culture is universally the same for every single individual because it's hundreds of thousands of members, right? But the people I've interacted with, I'm sure the people City have interacted with have been extremely patient, extremely nice, very reassuring, very helpful when it comes to wanting to learn about things. I think as long as you have the right attitude, you can go far. And I think that's super, super important. And it's something that, you know, I'm trying to push with my career and sort of make sure that, you know, I'm in 3 different rotations. I'm doing, you know, 3 different, really broad different things. What can I learn from it? So I think I'd say the people and the culture is pretty unique. There was a VP in my first team who joined the firm when he was, I guess, around our age. Left for whatever reason, went to 2 or 3 other banks, and then came back. And I was asking him, like, you know, why did you come back? I mean, I'm glad you're here, but why did you leave and why did you come back? And he said, well, I wanted to see what the rest of the world was saying, and I realized actually JPM is the best place to be. And I know that sounds very biased, but trust me, there's a reason he came back, and there's a reason why, you know, we're so proud of our culture, and it's something that we keep pushing on.
Apologies. We've got, this is so 2020, in the middle of making a presentation to students that we really want to engage with, and I've got one of the builders working on our flat telling me there's an overflow pipe problem.
Yeah.
Not now, please not now. He said, "Are you busy?" I thought, "Yes, I'm presenting at the moment." "Well, let me just show you this pipe." I'm like, "No." Luckily we're okay. So thank you very much. And you know, I'm listening to what you guys are saying, and I think you're absolutely right. And when you're at that point of choosing a firm to go to, on paper we all look the same, and you need to get to know the people, and it's the people that make somewhere. Coming back to what we talked about earlier, you both mentioned BRGs, getting involved in the grant committee, that sort of thing. What else? What other kind of things have you got involved in? And what has the bank been doing to kind of keep you feeling included and connected during the pandemic? Kanish, I'm deeply jealous of your donut decoration. Kind of, what other things have you seen going on?
You have no idea. We had donut decorations. We had, let me not butcher this. What was it? Cupcakes. Lotus cupcakes. We had a Lotus cupcake decoration thing as well. So, you know, pretty cool. Excuse to have donuts and cupcakes. Really shouldn't be having them anyway. Yeah, I think you touch upon the sort of virtual environment, and it's very easy to get disconnected, and it's very easy to get pretty demoralized because I don't know about yourselves, but I'm kind of in a smallish flat, and I've only got maybe 2 rooms that I can flip them back and forth between. So, you know, when we went into lockdown in March, I think we all had the assumption of a few weeks, maybe a few months. And now that, you know, we're about to go into another national lockdown, I think we're having to get comfortable with this sort of new virtual environment. I think the firm's done a lot to help us be comfortable. I think with my team, we had daily calls and a lot of touch-in points, which I think is really important, especially as a young graduate like myself, who, you know, maybe can get lost a lot of times during the working world. And don't get me wrong, it's definitely challenging. It's harder to sort of maybe ping your boss or ping your associate and say, "Hey, can we chat?" versus turning around and just tapping them on the shoulder. But I think those are the things that you kind of have to get adjusted to. But I think the firm's done a great job at, I think, keeping us connected in the virtual world. I talk about daily touch-in points or calls, but also events. I can't speak for City and the HR program, but I know from the finance perspective, the graduate committee that I sort of organize and run, I've been doing all sorts of events. I touched upon the donut socials, the Lola cupcake socials. We have done, I think, other game type things as well, like Mafia, Kahoot socials, Would I Lie to You, Office Olympics. I think it's interesting because of the pandemic in the virtual world, we've had to really put our creative hats on and think about ways that, you know, we can make events interesting and things outside of work interesting. And we currently have a winter social coming up, and we're trying to think about what to do for there. Maybe a cocktail making class, potentially, maybe a pizza baking kit. I mean, there's all sorts of initiatives that we're focusing on. So I think, yeah, the firm's done a great job making sure that the actual work side of things are okay, but the social side of things are being as good, if not better. So, which you wouldn't think in a virtual world, but I think we have to just strive on and push on with those challenges.
I think I'm in the wrong line of business. City, what kind of things have you seen? And obviously you've been probably closer to the people agenda and some of the more sort of policy driven side of what we've been doing. So how have you seen things play out over the last few months?
Yeah, so I think in my team itself, we have done a lot of things just to connect us together. We've had a murder mystery in the team. We've had just like team chats and discussions. We would have on a Friday afternoon, people are able to get their drinks out and just hang out and see like how we've done in the past week. But also from a firm perspective, what I've really enjoyed is there's just a lot going on in the company intranet. So if you go on there on a daily basis, you'll see a lot of things like home cooking, tips for parents. For example, we recently had Employee Appreciation Week, which was a full week of lots of events and activities. And what I really like is that it involved the family as well, because I'm quite lucky, I don't have children, but a lot of people in our firm do. And it's trying to manage working from home, plus, you know, your children not being in school and not having a nursery or whatever to send them to. And so a lot of the events in Employee Appreciation Week, for example, catered to a lot of different groups. So they were events that your family could join in as well, which I thought was really good. And it just shows that the firm cares about its people and is thinking about, you know, what are the needs of the employees at this time.
There have been some policy things that we've introduced, like things that seem really small, but usually we can carry over 5 days holiday. This year we can carry over 10. We've got more time to take it. I've actually just had my holiday cancelled because I was due to fly off on Friday. And actually that's going to be a great thing for me to be able to take over that holiday. And also having extra days. And I think there's been a lot of flexibility around when people work. And I think also a very good focus on people's mental health. It's not just about have you got the setup to work from home, but you know, you're now kind of isolated in a room looking at the same four walls all day without that contact. And how do we do that? So I think as well in a policy way, that's been a good thing to see. We're nearly at past. I feel that conversation's flown. So before we go over to Lizzie for questions from the audience, I wondered if I could ask you both to just give what piece of advice would you give our audience who are sort of embarking on their career at the moment? Cash, do you want to start?
Yeah, well, what a big question. No pressure. Piece of advice. I think everybody thinks or wants that they. How am I even phrasing this? I think walk before you can run. People change careers all the time. I think everybody at the age of 18, 19, 20 think, okay, this is what I want to do. This is it. And if that's the case, that's fantastic. But I've seen so many people in the bank and other careers and even my personal life moving jobs 10 times. And I think the biggest thing really is, you know, the biggest advice is don't put too much pressure on yourself. I think try to take your application seriously, get into a firm or whatever, but you know, don't sort of think that you need to be at a certain place at a certain time. I think so many people have their own timelines, so many people have their own journeys. If you do make it to JPM or another fantastic firm, that's great, but if you unfortunately don't, then don't think that okay, everything's over. I've seen people move around all the time. So I think the real piece of advice there would be just relax. I think people get super stressed out, especially myself. And with this virtual environment, making it harder to network and making it harder to arguably apply and do assessment centers, it can be quite overwhelming, especially with lockdown, university, lockdown. I don't even know how it's affecting you guys, still at university, but I think just take a deep breath, be organized, be prepared, but at the same time, understand that, everybody is on their own journey. I think it's the real spiritual advice I think I'd give everyone.
Advice, absolutely brilliant. And I think we see that a lot in JP Morgan. Some people kind of hit the right place, they kind of have a trajectory like that. Other people's careers, they move around, they try new things, and yeah, exactly as you say, define success for yourself and don't think it's just the job title. It's do you still enjoy going to work? Brilliant advice. Thank you. City, the last word going to you before questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. I think the best advice that I would give is to be yourself. I know this is super cliche, but it truly is such an exhausting experience to try and keep up appearances. So when you go to an assessment center, when you go to an interview, just know who you are and portray that. There's no need to be anyone else than who you are, because we're not trying to get the same type of people to fill in, all the roles in the firm. The firm is successful because there is a diverse group of people. So if you're not the type of person who parties all night, that's fine, because I'm not. And there is a place for me in the firm. If you are the type of person who parties all night, that's also fine, because there's also a place for someone like that in the firm. And so I find that as you work in the firm, it's more and more, you get advanced in your career, you meet a lot more people. It's so important to be honest and genuine, because others do see, especially members of the firm, they can tell if you're genuine or not. And it's that being genuine that really sets you apart. That's what makes you be remembered in the interviews and the assessment centers. It's why people want to hire you after an internship. It's why people, give you really good reviews after your rotation, and for you to advance in your career. Very cliche, but be yourself.
Absolutely right. And we did a big campaign, didn't we, about this is me at JPMC and bringing your whole self to work. And everybody, whoever you are, can find a place there. So I think a couple of pieces of fantastic advice. Thank you. Lizzie, I think we're probably ready to take our grilling from the audience. I think Lizzie's going to jump on.
Hello. Yes, thank you so much. What a brilliant way to start the event. So much great tips, advice, insights. Like, I feel really motivated. I'm sitting here at home like, yes, we can do everything. So you've had a brilliant effect on me. So yeah, I've got some questions already. So nod to the audience. If you've got any more, please pop them in the chat, because I can have a little look while we're chatting for the next 10-15 minutes. So yeah, I just wanted to pick up on some of those points. So I wrote them down, the kind of top tips. Be yourself and define your own success. I love them. They're so strong. So I just wanted to ask, in terms of your own experience that you've had, so what would you say are the key skills that you've learned through your journey so far with JP Morgan, that you could really almost like tell the audience, like, this is why it's so great to do my internship and grad scheme? Shall I come to Kanishk first?
Sure. So many, I don't think I have to count any more of them, but I think maybe an underrated skill is confidence. I think coming into a giant firm like JPM, and I keep echoing it, but the first role I did business management, you were really working with a lot of senior people. I know, especially myself, in the first few months, I was so shy. I didn't want to ask certain questions. I didn't want to put people in the eye. I did something wrong, I'd freak out. And I think as a result, that you could argue that hindered my performance in the first few months, compared to maybe if I was a bit more confident and I maybe asked those questions. So I think, especially spring weeks of interns or even first-year graduates who join big roles at big companies like JPM, just be confident. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to be inquisitive, and keep trying to learn. I think people appreciate, wanting to learn rather than someone maybe being a bit shy and maybe not asking the right questions. And then later on down the line, when you can't do the piece of work because you didn't ask the question, So of course, focus on the technical skills, but don't ignore the soft skills. Especially being confident, because that can honestly carry you a long way.
Great advice. Love that. City, anything from you to add to that?
Yeah. And I guess it would be a good one to share with students, actually. I found that what made my transition challenging from a university student to a graduate in JP Morgan was just the mindset with regards to work, because when I was in uni, and I'm sure a lot of people in uni have the same experience, you wait for an assignment to be given to you, you do it, and then you just let it go. You get a mark back, and then you just move on to the next one. Whereas in the working world, it's often you have to ask what people are involved in. because they may not know that you're interested in something. They may not know that you have the skills to do something. So go out there and speak to people, find out what they're up to. If it's interesting, you can put your hand up and say, oh, can I help you with this? Or can I share with you on this? And then even when you complete something, it's often that there are more things that could be done. There is something else that this could apply to. So it's really thinking more overarching, outside the box, like the bigger picture, rather than single individual assignments that you send to your professor and you get like a mark back. So it's really, that transition is something that I wish that I knew when I first joined as a graduate.
Yeah, that's such a good point. You can't prepare for it, can you? It's that adjustment. You learn so much when you're there at the firm, and I think you both are brilliant because you're able to communicate that so well because you're there, you're doing it. So yeah, thank you so much. Really interesting. And Paula, from your side, so this is the age-old question that everyone wants to know. But what is it that you're looking for? Like, what kind of qualities are you looking for the people that you want to join JP Morgan?
I mean, I think number one has got to be motivation. We can teach you to do a lot of it. We can't teach you to want to do it, and to want to go above and beyond, as the guy said. So I think motivation is a big one. And by that, I mean, that's a really broad term. And everyone's like, well, other than just sort of standing there every day going, please give me a job, how do you do that? And I think for me, it comes down to a couple of things. Number one, have you got a really good reason and understanding for doing the work that you're going to do? I mean, you know, when CC and Tanishq were talking about the kind of things they do, it is really interesting. And you can sit there and think, oh, that sounds so exciting and glamorous. And, you know, I've got to travel to some really cool places, and you think about the guys on the trading floor. It all seems really glamorous. That's probably about 10% of the job. Another 90% of it is working hard, trying to get things through. You know, big companies, there can be a lot of going around to find the right ideas. So we really want people who actually understand what is it that I'm getting myself into, and why does that still excite me? So I'm sure Tanishq has done some really long hours in the past, but also knowing that what he's doing is connected to what's going on outside is probably a big driver. So that's part of the motivation, is do your research on that. And also doing meetings for JP Morgan. And I think we're kind of mean, and all firms are, because we all want to know why us. And realistically, it's probably us and 4 other places, and you kind of take any of them. So it's a bit mean to say why JP Morgan, but again, it's kind of getting behind well, you're number one at what you do, or you've won lots of awards, or you do this, and why is that important to you? So yes, we're number one at what we do. What does that mean for you? Well, it means you're learning from the people who are at the top of their game. And it means that we've probably got resources that will help you push your career. So I think that motivation is an absolutely huge one. And then just to pick up on a couple of other things, the commitment to continuing to learn is really important, because you're not going to know it all from day one. And if you're happy to make a mistake but learn from it and move on, that's absolutely brilliant. And also, we all work with clients and stakeholders, whether they're internal or external. And so understanding how to build a relationship, but also how to apply commercial thinking. So that means in HR, commercial thinking is, how does this work for my stakeholder? In Tanishq's world, commercial thinking is, how does this affect maybe our balance sheets? What does it mean for the financial health of this department as well? So those are the kind of the things that I would focus on.
Excellent. You heard it here first, everyone. I like that. And just to touch on, I think, some of the things you said and what's already been discussed in terms of how we're trying to choose, or I guess our audience trying to choose where to go, and you know, what actually is it that's going to excite them. And I just wondered, you touched on it a bit already, but if you could kind of give our audience an idea of like what really inspired you, what attracted you to work at JP Morgan, because I think that's invaluable from all of you. So Siti, what would you say to that?
Oh, this is a really good one. If I'm being completely honest, I'm very much a high achiever. So I purposefully chose the company that's at the top of its game, because I knew that I wanted to work in HR, but I wanted to make sure that I would be in the best firm to work in HR, so that my work would not just be paying people and hiring and firing and that's it. It will be interesting projects. It will touch on different parts of the firm. It will look at talent and performance development, succession plans, you know, very, very broad, and somewhere where I could, if I wanted, move to America or work in Dubai. So I wanted to have all those opportunities. And because of that, I looked online. JP Morgan is the #1 firm. And so I went to JP Morgan. And then the challenge was then trying to portray that to the person who was interviewing me, and you know, at the same time not seeing a bit like a snob, just trying to be quite honest and genuine in saying I would like to be a high achieving person in a high achieving firm. So I would say that was it. That's why I chose JP Morgan.
Brilliant. I bet they love that.
Yeah, so.
You're in. Kenny, what would you say?
Yeah, aside from, I guess, continuously being biased and saying we're #1, maybe we are. We definitely are. No, I'm joking. So I think the thing that I focused on very much so was the type of program that I was particularly applying for. So, you know, don't audit me, I'm no expert, but I don't think many other big banks have finance programs like we do in terms of the rotations that we get. We have such broad rotations. I want to say other firms, I'm not going to name them because I could be completely wrong, but they maybe only have a limited set of potential finance roles, usually product control heavy. Whereas a firm like JP Morgan, we have business management, we have valuations control group, we have regulatory reporting, program management, a whole horde of things, maybe like 10 different types of rotations compared to maybe 2 or 3 other firms. So for me, when it came to actually A, finding a career I wanted to do, and B, looking at a firm that I want to potentially go work for, looking at the career, firstly, I had no idea. And I thought a scheme like finance, being able to rotate in the bank, will help me get a pretty solid fundamental of how a bank works and how the different areas of the bank work. So then once realizing that, you know, I could do business management 1 year, valuations a year, product control another year, I can learn about 3 different areas of the business. That opportunity to rotate is something that I did not see very much at other firms, at least in the same level of depth that JPM offers. When you combine fantastic rotations and create broad experience across the bank, mixing that with working with a #1 bank, it was a pretty easy choice. I guess it was more if I could even get in the first place, but thankfully I was able to. So I think that was really the motivation between applying, looking at the types of experiences that I could endeavor, and then subsequently the surroundings I would be in.
Yeah, just the motivations and how you are where you are, and it feels like you're really enjoying it. I get the passion from you both, so that's very, very important. So we've got a nice question from the audience. So yeah, this is going to be quite an interesting one, because if you cast your minds back to when you were applying, do you have any advice on how to succeed the online assessments and interviews for placements and internships? So yeah, I guess Siti, from your side, any advice on how to succeed?
Yeah, I would say during my time, what I hope set me apart was understanding why JP Morgan. So it's all well and good for me to say I want to work in the #1 firm, but what do I know about JP Morgan? What is it exactly that attracted me to it? So we're very lucky in that JP Morgan is, you know, in the media quite a bit with all of the amazing things that we do. For example, recently Jamie Dimon spoke to like tech CEOs in Silicon Valley for like a partnership. So in my time, in summer 2018, what was going on in the media? What were the new things that were in place? So we have this new system where you can give feedback to anyone, anytime, and they're ready for your annual review. So I thought that this was really cool. I picked up on this. I spoke about it in the interviews, and I said, yeah, I wanted to be involved in something like this. What other tech initiatives has the firm got to make, you know, the employee life cycle better? So it's really that. It's not just I want to be in JP Morgan because it's #1 firm. That is true, but what is it that attracts you to it? And there's the JP Morgan website. Obviously, you can see a lot of what we do worldwide in terms of philanthropy, in terms of supporting, you know, diverse groups in the firm. And be honest and genuine if that interests you. If it does, then definitely make it known. Make yourself present and memorable. And I think the other thing as well is just be nice to everyone. You know, speak to the other candidates on that day. Speak to everyone. Just be nice, because that's another way that you can get yourself across, because you can be really memorable if you're just a really lovely person.
Yeah, really good advice. And Kanisha, I remember you said earlier about the soft skills. It's just so important. You've got your technical side, but the soft skills are so important. And that, yeah, everything you just said there around be nice, that's something that's so important that sometimes you just forget. So yeah, anything else from your side, Kanisha, about how succeed?
Yeah, I think, be organized and do your research. I think that's a given, but you pretty much stole my answer for me. Soft skills are so important. Something I don't think I've coined the term, but look up something called an airport test. I think the airport test is, would I want to be stuck overnight in an airport with this person? Yes or no? And I think if you pass the airport test, good job. And that rapport that you want to get with your interviewer is really important. You can only really get that from Asity and Lizzie. You mentioned is just be nice, be kind, be genuine, come across as not a robot and as a human being, and I think you'll be fine. So of course, do your preparation, be organized. For example, before my assessment center, I saw that JPM acquired a certain firm, and I brought it up and I talked about the stock price and all that technical jargon, and I'm sure they love that. But hopefully what also impressed them was just the human element of myself. And everyone is a human. I don't think any of you are robots. So just make sure you come across, because in the moment under pressure, it's really easy to be quite static and nervous and stuttery and stuff. I think take a deep breath, be composed, be calm, just come across as a genuine person, and you'll be fine.
Well, we are. It's 10:46, so I'm going to have to leave this conversation, even though I'd love to carry on talking. So if anyone has specific questions or wants to go into the booth, please go in there, and JP Morgan will be there to answer questions. And I just want to say thank you so much to all of you. What a brilliant start to the day, and lots of motivation. And thank you again. Speak to you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck, everyone.
Bye.